Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection. Today we're going to take a look at Frank's very big and very varied collection. It's so big, there were some parts of it I may have not quite got right. There were a lot of Seikos and sometimes I wasn't sure what they all were. So anyway, so if it just says Seiko, I wasn't sure about it. Okay, well let's get started. What Frank had done, and I really like this idea, he had divided it into different groupings. Now, one group, for example, this first one is there's a diver group, there's a formal dress group, some other ones. We'll see them as we go along. But that sort of is a nice organizing device. The first one is the divers, and there are half of them are Seiko divers. The From left to top to bottom, left to right, there's a Rolex Submariner, which is sort of a very classic diver. The Omega Seamaster, professional diver. Tudor Heritage, Black Bay, Silver, and Gold. Those are three. This is the thing that I like about Frank's collection, is the diversity. He did, by the way, Frank did a lot of work on getting me all the information for all of these watches, and I appreciate that. Okay, bottom left, this was a Seiko. I think it's a Seiko diver, but I wasn't quite sure which one because it was with the divers. So, but there were three Seiko divers, and one was called the Orange Monster, and another was the Pepsi. So anyway, there was those are Seikos. Frank really liked Seikos a lot, and unfortunately, I like them too, but I don't know them as well as Frank. And there's all of these ones I haven't heard of. One of my favorite Seikos is still the Seiko 5. Okay, moving right along here, some more divers and some more Seikos. One's a Seiko Patty, another's a Seiko 5. And then finally there's one, the Hamilton Intramatic. I'm not sure if that's a diver or not, but maybe it is. It was with the diver group. Now, there was a sort of a residual category called Other, and there was a Casio Edifice EQ S, Timex Ironman, Swatch System 51. This is sort of an interesting movement. It's one of the things you can't work on it. It's sort of sealed in there. And then there's an Apple Watch for very much others for us mechanical collectors, but still, it's, it has variety. Frank loves watches, and he loves the variety that they have too, which is a lot of fun. All right, now this next group, there are really sort of two groups here. One's a military field, the top row, and the bottom row are the pilot watches. The Glycine Incursor has a Unitas ETA 6497. This is the one in the top left. You can tell the 97s because they have the small seconds over at 9 o'clock rather than at 6 o'clock like the 98 had. One of my favorite, really, one of the favorite movements from ETA that they have. This next one is the Timex Expedition Military Field. This watch, I think this is the one that Frank said that he forgot a watch, so he picked one up on some kind of trip he was on. It was military field. And then a G-Shock. Of course, a G-Shock is, if you get hit by a hand grenade, it's good to have your G-Shock ready. Now, for the pilot's watches, one of the first ones he has is a Rolex GMT Master 2 Batman. Now, a lot of people want to say, wait, what about all of the Air King or Air Master or whatever the other ones Rolex has that have something about air, and why the GMT? I'll tell you why. I mean, for a real pilot's watch, I think the Rolex GMT Master 2 is a great one. The reason being is that when you fly, everything has to be on Zulu time or GMT time. And so having a GMT is probably one of the most important things you can have with a pilot's watch, at least I think so. All right. The next pilot's watch, you have a Oris Big Crown Pro Pilot. Now it's funny on that particular one, the crown doesn't seem to be those giant onions that they have on like the Zenith, but still one I like. Now the Tissot Type B pilot is an interesting one. It looks like an old Flieger kind of watch that they used to have in the early German Air Force, Luftwaffe. Okay, this next group, you have the Racing Chronos. Frank is a Formula One fan, and he's got some. There's a classic with a Rolex Daytona, which is named after a racetrack. Hoyer, Carrera, Jack Hoyer. This is a limited edition. Another, I think it's a Mexican racetrack named Carrera. And the Zenith El Primero Chronomaster. These are definitely chronos. The Omega Speedmaster Professional Hesselite. This is another one that was one of the racing chronos. This one, I hope I have this one right. It's the Seiko Speed Timer Puig. And I'm not positive that I may have screwed that one up, but I hope it's right. It's all right. It's a Tissot T-Race chronograph is the other one. So there were two sets of pictures that Frank had, and I used the wrist shots. They were a little bigger, and so each one of these got in it. Sometimes the light on it isn't as dramatic, because that Tissot really is a cool looking watch. I mean, it looks a little washed out here, but that's just because of the nature of the angle that the light happened to be at. Okay, moving right along. This next group is the beginning of the dress formal. There are quite a few dress formal watches. The first one is a Rolex Datejust 2. I see the Datejust 2 as more, and I know there's no formal category for this, but I see it more as an office watch. Kind of thing you wear every day for 30 years working at the same place, and it's just good old reliable tool watch. The Grand Seiko Snowflake is another one. It's a very pretty watch. This next one, the Rodina Small Seconds Bauhaus. It looks like a Nomos type of watch, and it's a nice little watch. Now this next one is Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso Dual Face. This is, I think I've said it more than once, one of my very favorite Reversos. I like this one a lot. It's dual face. It's night and day. It's dual time. So many things. You get really two very nice watches in a single watch with that dual face. The Glashütte Original Panel Reserve is another one I like a whole lot. In fact, all of these I like. But the Glashütte Original Panel Reserve is one I like a lot. There's a Panel Lunar and some other ones that they have for that Panel series, but I think that's one of their coolest models that they have. The Hermes Slim de Hermes. Beautiful, beautiful watch. I love that watch. The fonts on the Hermes are ones that are uniquely Hermes. They were designed by somebody for Hermes. Very, very cool looking fonts on it for the dial numbers. Okay, more dress formal. The far left is a beautiful Seiko, but I didn't know the exact one which it was. And Frank had listed everything, but I wasn't sure what. I mean, there was a list over here and the watches over here, and I was trying to match them up, and I wasn't always successful. So that was one Seiko that got away from me. Beautiful one, just radiant out of the middle. Cool looking watch. Seiko 5, like I mentioned, it's one of my favorite because it has so many innovations for its time. Now, here are a couple that are interesting ones for a dress formal. One's a Seagull Skeleton. And I've worked a lot in making watches. I use Seagull because they're the least expensive that I can break, but it's sort of a cool watch. Another one was a startup called ERA Prometheus. Really a very dramatic watch. It's very cool and have. This is, again, like I said, these are the things I like about Frank's collection. You see something interesting, and he likes it. Okay, on the bottom row, there's a Frederick Constant Classic Moon Phase. Thing about Frederick Constant, as long as they're in steel and they have some beautiful designs. I spent some time at a Frederick Constant booth with this guy a few years ago at a watch show in New York, and they are nice watches. If there's something about that a watch company does that aggravates me, I tend to be not as fair as I should be. And Frederick Constant does use gold plating, which just drives me crazy. So, but there are steel watches, heck, they're great. They really are. Good buy, in-house movement, and so forth. The Hamilton Intramatic. Here's a good-looking dress watch. Not expensive though, but good-looking. Same with the Movado Museum watch. A Movado Museum watch, for some reason, I always see that with a tuxedo. Beautiful, very nice watch. Horologically, Movado hasn't done a great deal, but design-wise, they're really tip-top. Finally, here is that the Gucci 9000M is a two-tone watch. It's a Gucci is a fashion watch design, so you can take that, but it is interesting, and this is what makes Frank's collection so great. Is that, hey, yeah, I've never seen that before, but I have now, which is cool. Okay, finally, this was something. I have the his and hers Rolex Yachtmasters. Now, I'm a fan of the Yachtmaster too, but in general, they're a pretty cool watch. But one of the things Frank had mentioned something that at one time he had a not so real Yachtmaster. I don't know if he still has it or not, but one of the more recent watches he got his wife a Yachtmaster, and so now they both have one. They both have one that looks like a Yachtmaster. Interesting collection. You have Rolex, you have Omega, you have Zenith, you have Tudor, lots and lots of Seikos, Jaeger-LeCoultre, what else? This huge variety. And to me, that makes watch collection a lot more interesting. Some might think, hey, you got a lot of Seikos there, but Seikos are one of the best buys around. They really are. They make extremely good, horologically speaking, like very good tool movements, but they also make some of the higher end ones, especially with the Grand Seiko, which is also part of Frank's collection. Here, to suggest anything more is, now I would say something for where you can spool up without going broke would be, I think, two watches, and would be a H. Moser and also a Parmigiani, one of the Parmigianis. Those are they're getting scarcer and scarcer, but there are some still fabulous buys, and those watches are really up there. I didn't recommend something from the Holy Trinity, not because I don't like them. They're very nice watches, but in terms of any kind of newer thing that would really be a hop, I think that one of those would be really good in this collection. Of course, something like F.P. Journe or Caribou and Lannon, those would be very nice too, but those things are crazy expensive. Okay, well, listen, I'd like to hear what your comments are, your suggestions, and any ideas that you have that would enhance Frank's collection. And until next week, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the Art and Science of Watch Collection. Remember, you really want to get involved in the Grand Prix picks, and hope you do, because we are giving away 3 free watches from a pretty good collection that you can choose from. Take care. Hope to see you then.